It's easy to get Ubel wrong. She's the definition of a bad feeling, quick to murder people, basically doesn't care for anyone's safety. The camera seems to love her armpits. But she has a lot more in common with these two than it might seem. Not to mention her unique relationship to magic, where she alone gets to operate entirely through vibes. But Ubel is still human, and there's a lot more to her than the popular idea. There's a lot that people get wrong about Ubel. She isn't just some sadist that's evil for the sake of evil. Her main goal is to empathize with people, but she can't seem to operate within the boundaries of polite society. Add this weirdly intuitive approach to magic, and you've got one of the most interesting side characters in the series. It's just a shame that's not the Ubel we tend to see. What people get wrong about Ubel, the meme version of the character, you know this effect. We all kind of do it because it's funny. Characters in imagination morph from the rounded ones they are into a more two-dimensional thing. In the case of Ubel, she turns into this kind of like horny murder goblin. Or someone who kills for the sake of simply being sadistic. But who is the actual Ubel? When we first meet her, she's visibly, she's pretty evil. Like, it seems like she'll be the evil rival or something, especially as we're heading into the exam arc, but Ubel doesn't really end up taking that role. She's more a different approach than anything outright antagonistic. Someone with a decent amount in common with Frieren and Frieren. Another clear result of the world they live in. Ubel is someone who fails to fit the social norms of this society. It's the same tendencies other characters get praised for. But with Ubel, we find it off-putting, largely because the protagonists do. She's much easier to understand once we can see her on her own terms. She does end up being a bit of a mirror image to the main party, but not as an outright evil version of a mage. There are very few pure evil humans in Frieren. I mean, other than that one who, mouthed off at Himmel's funeral, pretty much the entire modern-day plot can be traced back to this one unseen person being a jerk. In audience reaction, she's kind of been the opposite of Aura, These are characters who are designed to be attractive, and between this and some very memorable moments, they get a lot more attached to them than might really be the truth. In Aura's case, her physical appearance means that people humanize her more, but with Ubel, for some reason, it's more fun to play up the less human qualities. And while she might be a little broken, she is still human and seems to want to hold on to that humanity. I think that's one of the biggest gaps between the meme and the real Ubel, her morality. A popular idea of Ubel is this violence-loving fiend.
Vote for Mr. Frog, and together we can build.
Kind of like that. I mean, it's a lot of what she does, but there is a big gap between the more measured, in-context violence that we actually see her do and the pathological killer. Ubel is introduced as an amoral mage, someone who likes killing for the sake of it, apparently. And it's easy to take that at face value here, but from what we really see, there's a difference between Ubel's morality as it's said and how she actually acts. Let's look at this. We see Ubel approached by bandits who are sent away by Kraft after he discovers graves of other bandits and knows, it were her that done that. It's easy to interpret this scene as Ubel kills bandits, Ubel bad, but they're bandits, and someone seems to have buried them. I'm assuming it's Kraft who did that. But maybe it was Ubel. Maybe after killing people, she digs little graves and builds headstones. Morality-wise, sure, she's not avoiding fights. But it's not like she's attacking people for no reason. You can't take too much of a moral judgment out of this. Even Kraft says he's not going to judge someone for self-defense. She might not have much remorse for killing, but a lot of the less bad mages we meet kind of have the same exact approach. Structurally, I think the intro is largely here to add more to the tension to the opening of the first tests. What's Byrne doing in the group with the murderer? That's the hook, that's the one. But if it was, say, Denkin who had this intro scene, then the hook for the arc would just be Frieren's going to meet an old man and then sit a test. And though this is a show that kept me entertained when the plot was just everyone's real tired today, meeting an over old man isn't the biggest tease. The murder goblin maybe works better. But in the test itself, we learn a lot more about Ubel's morality, and I think you kind of get to see why you shouldn't take Ubel at her word for how much she loves killing people. A fight breaks out, and it looks like it's made Ubel's day. Or it's made her as happy as it's made Ubel. I think it's easy to look at her in these fights and say she's a sadist who enjoys this stuff for the sake of it. But Ubel is matching her expressions, her body language, one-to-one. She's as much of a sicko as he is here. And he doesn't like killing and wants to remain human. It's possible to enter a mage test where combat is inevitable and not care about doing in combat without that making her pure evil. These two are basically matched in their enjoyment of the fight and in pulling back from killing. Ubel doesn't kill unnecessarily, so why do we look at the same behavior, the same enjoyment with Ubel, and say that she does? Ubel dismisses her reluctance to kill him as evidence she's a pervert who enjoys causing pain, but it's not true. She's after a human connection, not a murder victim. When Fern shows up, Ubel looks evilly happy about the situation, but it's not because she thinks there's more violence coming, it's because she knows Fern just perfectly bluffed their way out of a potential death situation. And sure, as he's leaving, she immediately goes to kill him from behind, but he threatens to kill her if she does, and I know there's a bit more evidence for that whole Ubel is just a sadist thing, going to stab someone the second their back is turned, but he essentially promises her a fight to the death again, the thing she keeps saying that she wants, and Ubel just lets it end, empathized with him, and with that gotten the understanding she wanted, so why indulge the fight anymore? Ubel might be okay with killing in some situations. She might even not fit what society expects in terms of shame after killing, but despite what she says, it really doesn't look like she directly enjoys murder. She's getting something else from these fights. Ubel only seems to have fun in fights to the death, but pulls back from killing quite a bit. So what's she actually after? Beyond, a night with the winner of the world's sexiest mage award, the glasses must really do it for her. No, there's something else she wants. I think the most interesting section for this is where they're fighting the duplicates. Since one stole her golem, they've figured out we can probably say they're the same. They have the same personalities, the same memories, the same weird droopy eyes, all that. Maybe the same lack of respect for personal space. So when Ubel jumps in to fight her double, yeah, it's a cool palette swap action scene, but she says to herself, you must really want to die. The duplicate matches her exactly, and she doesn't think it enjoys killing or violence. She thinks it wants to die and be in fights to the death. And I think that's part of the motivator for Ubel. She's someone with a bit of a death wish. Her desire for these life or death situations doesn't come from a sadistic desire to do harm, but for the entire experience, for the danger of being harmed as well, the rush, the adrenaline. We don't actually see her murder a ton of people. The bandits looked like self-defense, the proctor was an accident. She just doesn't really care after it happens, which is probably a pathological thing. Her desire for fights to the death is motivated by wanting to be in danger, more than wanting to be the danger. She might be looser with life than the outright heroes that we follow, yeah, but she's not the hero. A show about Ubel purely, that would be a different thing, especially when she's basically stalking people for long stretches of time. But she expresses regret over lethal violence, and she's just not very good at keeping to the thin line of acceptability in these fights. Part of her skill set, how her magic works, draws on this idea that she doesn't always realize limitations. She can't see the rules that clearly. It's the same as her approach with the violence. She goes past the limit. I don't think we can take her creepy smile at absolute face value. Ubel isn't looking to kill people, she's looking to understand people, but her way of relating to them is unnerving to many. Ubel's vibes-based approach to everything is most obvious in a later duplicate fight. After destroying her own duplicates, she pops back up doing something I think everyone in this world probably hopes they can do someday. Meeting Denken, the Imperial Mage and heavyweight champ of the Northern Lands, she asks if they need to kill the duplicate to get through the dungeon and confidently jumps right in. Ubel even has to lecture people about how her magic is a good counter, weaker or stronger with mana or not. She's just well suited to this particular fight. Her main spell is one that cuts anything. Well, if she reckons she can cut it, then she can cut it. That's how it works. No wonder she's so extroverted. The world just seems to fold to make things fit her imagination. It's in this part of the fight that we get the flashback to Ubel's test 2 years earlier. The test is to make the proctor take a simple step back. It isn't to damage him, it's just to get a reaction. Kind of similar to the final test in some ways. Ubel's approach kind of works, too. If he was less confident in his magic, he would have stepped back instead of, being killed. In hindsight, he really should have just stepped back. She kind of called his bluff. Step back or I'll stab you. It cuts to the core of the test and to the core of the guy administrating it. When he doesn't step back, she's shocked that she cut too deep, which just means she wasn't intending to kill him. Just isn't that bothered by what she did. When she's asked how she cut it later, we flash back briefly to her big sister. It's all about visualizing. Cloth can be cut. Why couldn't she cut through a cloak? It's only cloth. She has fantastic visualization. She just kind of bypasses some of the smarter stuff to rely on her intuition. And when they claim her mind doesn't function like a normal person's, it might give her some advantages. But that might also be the very same thing that people find so off-putting about her. She similarly passes the last test easily. The violent woman who does magic through vibes, obviously, Zuri thinks is an instant pass. This visualization stuff is really interesting with Ubel. She's a different side to the study-based magic, but it's not a skill that you could learn, I don't think. She's naturally gifted with this element of magic, just like Fern is with her form of magic. Both take just one element of being an age and have this natural, genius-level talent for it, and both also limit their magic in battles to a few rather basic spells. Basic spells that come from someone important to them. The other really unique part of Ubel's skill set, though, is all on her, and it has a lot more to do with connection than killing. Ubel's kind of core thing is empathy. Just like Frieren, it's wanting to find a connection to someone, and like Fern, it's someone who was a product of the stranger circumstances of their upbringing. She can understand other people's magic by understanding them. The most important part of her isn't this sicko stuff, it's the desire to understand other people, and the failure often to do so, without resorting to violence. In a way, Land and Ubel have this direct contrast thing going on with their approaches. His is to watch and wait when you're fighting an opponent, do a load of research and break things down. But Ubel's is just to empathize with someone. Land does research and Ubel reads the room. She listens to the vibrations. There's more to Ubel. Look at when she's in the cave and she learns this absolute pervert over here has a spell to look through clothes with magic. And who goes straight to that when you've just met them? Why is that Fern's first thought when talking to other people? Meet a nice guy, let's take a look. Meet a guy with glasses. Make clear you can take a look. He should be under no pretense at any point that you can't immediately see anything whenever you want. Keep him on his toes, I guess, is her policy. Anyway, so Ubel retreats a ton and hides her body with her legs, which, is a lot more self-aware than the out-there meme version of Ubel would manage. There's more to side characters here than just a single quality, a single trait. And with Ubel, we only get to see someone else's vision of her. There's a pretense to Ubel. We largely see her through other people's eyes, not her own experience. We see her more brutally here by way of craft. We see her as off-putting through Fern, who, let's face it, is a little uptight for someone who keeps looking through everyone's boxer shorts. She doesn't fit in the Continental Magic Association. Not really. She needs someone to rein her in because she can't be trusted to behave the way they want her to. But largely because of social norms and not fitting into their outlook. Kind of like another Mage's problem with playing nice in that club. I think it's notable that she's rarely alone. A solo Ubel moment might not work, because her whole unease thing doesn't really work unless there's someone around to be put off by it. Would it have the same effect if we observed her alone? If that's the case, how much of her smile or off-putting nature can we say is real? Can we be sure it isn't an offensive measure? I think when Land said that she'd struggle without someone to talk to, it showed he'd learned as much about her as the other way around. Ubel's weird approach to people isn't dissimilar to Frieren. It's a withdrawal or a struggle to form connections in an appropriate way. She's just very extroverted in her weirdness. It's a different form of social maladaptation. In between the tests, when everyone's just kind of hanging out, like when you have a bit of free time on a school trip, Ubel is tracking down Land. And of course, she threatens violence. We didn't talk to her. Who knows if that's a genuine threat or not. He decides to prod why she didn't kill in the exam, and Ubel says it's hard to explain, which I think betrays a more complex view of killing. She has to empathize with people. Once she can understand their magic, she has to understand them first, which then gets in the way of killing them. I think if you understand this, it doesn't look like Ubel enjoys killing people, and her only goal in annoying this guy is to just steal his magic. To understand other people is her goal, despite the gulf in their outlooks. I think the question a lot of this begs is, who is the real Ubel underneath all of this? If so much of what she does is to relate to people, even down to how she presents herself, she clearly has a death wish, for one thing. It's a rare alone comment from her to herself. It's not to an audience, so it seems to give a more real insight. I think she's best explained as a reflection of the world that she's in. We don't know that much about Ubel's background, but we do know that her sister has been important to her. Frieren's world produces a lot of trauma, a lot of orphans. And I think an outcome like Ubel, someone that maladjusted to society, isn't unrealistic. Just as much as an elf who predates a society would have trouble fitting into it and might just withdraw without other prompting, or a war orphan who had extremely limited interaction with anyone her own age would struggle to relate to her peers, Ubel doesn't quite fit. But she's someone who seemingly ended up with some wires crossed, obsessed with empathizing but unable to feel it when someone dies, hardened against the deaths of those around her. There's an irony to needing to empathize but lacking it when somebody dies. She's an outcome that I think would be depressingly common in that kind of environment. There's enough vagity with Ubel that she could be taken in some really interesting places. I don't know how much her broad evil grin or attempts to use people are genuine and not an affectation, a coping mechanism. We could eventually see that Ubel's nicer moments, or even her regret at violence, are a truer reflection. Or her love for violence could be something pathological, because it seems to be the only real option open to a lot of people in this world. It'd be interesting to see where Ubel goes, but I'm sure whatever the outcome, Ubel isn't as simplistic as just the magic scissors sadist. Hey, thanks for watching. I've been Comfy Lilin. There's quite a bit more if you liked this, and a sub button. Right, cheers.